Yeah, well, welcome to season one, episode 9 of Strength in Numbers podcast. Going over Thor's 501 kilogram record deadlift, the proposed boxing match that Thor and Eddie have both signed down to, and Luke's log press coming up very shortly. So, what do you? I guess who wants to start in on the deadlift?
For one, it was fucking awesome. He was strong as shit, and it was awesome to watch. Um, I I don't know if he could have pulled more. The only person who knows that is him. Uh, and he said that he could have, but there's going to be room for debate there, no matter what.
Definitely think building the hype was the reason why he said he could have.
Yeah.
But we were
I
sitting.
said that too from the beginning. That the 520 was probably just hype for him.
I think if he wanted to, his last lift could have been 505, 510. But given that he'd peaked and trained for 501 4 weeks ago, which would have been in Dubai, the 501 was always a safe option. It was always going to be the safe option. That's what he knew he had in the bag. There was no point risking 505, 510 and then running on ESPN schedule. Would they let him take another 15, 20 minutes to recover?
I think Thor thought he could do it. Like, I really believe Thor thought that he could do 505, 510.
ESPN had stuff queued up immediately after it was over.
Because I don't think Thor would have told everyone that he was going to do it and do the whole Twitch thing if he knew contractually it was never going to happen. I feel like he thought in his head that he could get it.
He could have put it in the contract that it would have happened. He could have had extra time for doing those.
I just think that
he probably knew he wasn't going to get it. Like,
I just stand by that you don't rep world records. This is coming true again and again. It keeps coming up. You don't rep world records.
Another thing I was thinking is that this might bring into another factor that hasn't really been considered for super heavy weights like this. It might be that 500 or 501 is the most you can do, like, just economically, like the most a human body can do leading up to it, like safely, basically. Like, doing the amount of lifts it would take to get your body ready to do 501, I think is kind of where the human limit is, and that's why it's so hard to do.
Oh yeah,
I think any jumps after that are going to be very, very small, just because of how difficult it is just to get all those weights in the same lift, all three of them, like, together. Saw an article that said it was 3,056 pounds basically that he lifted in those three lifts.
And the total weight lifted on his, because Sebastian Oreb put up his warm-up schedule and as well, so he lifted in total volume-wise 4,560 kilos up until the end of that 501, which is roughly 10,000 kilos of 10,000 pounds of weight. Sorry. So when you're saying about the sort of scale, could he have lifted 5,000 kilos worth of a 510, 520 attempt in on it? You would. I mean, he starts off at 8 reps at 75 kilos, jumps to 125, 175, 225. Obviously, rep range goes down. So you would effectively, as much as 75 kilos is single hand stuff, he would have to cut out a good bit of the rep range at the start and really jump in, I don't know, 175, 225 range. And then you're running the risk of injuries and stuff like that.
That's what I was gonna say. If you cut your warm up short, that's where you start getting injuries. Like, so that's why I was saying, I think economically, in order for your body to pull 501, I don't know if it's going to be possible to pull the stuff before it too.
Yeah, no, you can't. You get one peak at above 500.
Another thing I was thinking about Eddie's lift. Eddie took, people say he took around 30 minutes between his last lift and the 500. That's about what I've heard. I don't know. It's probably like 20-ish minutes between, like, when he was actually supposed to be ready. But one thing I know is that he for sure was not still warm by the time he went and pulled that 501. 30 minutes, even on a heavy deadlift, you're going to cool down a decent amount. And I think that also hurt him a little bit more too, because I think Thor with the schedule, I think that was the best way for him to pull 501. Anything after that with that schedule, I don't think was ever possible.
The whole thing from start to finish took him an hour and a half, roughly. They've obviously said put up the rest time in between everything. So I mean, I know we're saying obviously like you'd get one hit at anything over 500 kilos, but he's also got the best sort of team round about him to restructure and recalculate where you could.
If there's any team that could get an athlete to a second 500 kilogram lift, it would be Thor's team.
Absolutely, you can't doubt that. I mean, when you look at how meticulous they've been with regards to everything, and I think that obviously the extra 3 weeks probably helped him as well. But you look at how meticulous they are, even with regards to specific rest times. They've obviously figured out that they've got an hour schedule with the ESPN thing, so they've figured out where they need to be at what times. And I mean, I think the only lift that was possibly a couple of minutes behind, and again that maybe just be because my stream was behind, was the very last lift, which was I think 2 minutes behind. That again, that could have been just my.
I wasn't even paying attention because I was like, but yeah, that's good. That's a really good schedule. But ESPN was going to keep them on that schedule.
Everything ran like clockwork, and you wouldn't get that in a competition. You're not going to get that sort of setting in a competition.
Is that like I was arguing at first that in a competition setting, your rest times wouldn't be set, but it's also the thing about competitions, your rest times are different. It's not 15, 15, 15. It's 20, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, just for no reason sometimes. And that's in a competition, you can't control all the scenarios. And I thought rest times that short would hurt Thor, but I think 15 minutes is probably short, but not at all undoable.
Because see, I'm not pulling anywhere near that kind of weight, right? Yeah. But when I do my warm-up set, basically, I have a timer going on that I just kind of follow to make sure that I'm not taking too short or too long of a rest. I notice around about 3 minutes and my lighter stuff, I'm like, I need to do another set. And at the very heavy end sets, I feel good about 8 minutes is perfect. So with the kind of weight he's pulling, that 15-minute rest is probably right in the slot where you've recovered good enough, but you're not quite cooled off yet. But that still feels a little long. Like I think optimal would have been like 11 minutes probably.
Brian Martins, Thor, they've all talked about heavy deadlifts, and there's two categories. It's either for heavy deadlifts, it's either like 8 to 12 minutes or as long as you need. That's another one that I've heard from a few people I know. They'll take sometimes 20 minutes between heavy deadlifts, not on every single one, but if a rep was kind of misgrooved and it didn't feel right, they'll take an extra little bit of time. They're not doing nothing. They're probably doing a little bit of work to keep them cooling off. But I think rest times, if you have them structured like that, I think it makes it easier. If you have the exact same rest times all the time, I think that actually makes it way easier.
These are probably also rest times that he had kind of gone through this in practice.
He's absolutely
rep in minutes.
When he done his 470 in training, he's absolutely done those sort of rest times in the lead up to that. He's practiced it. That's not a one hit at that one. They've ran through that.
Just from the way he pulled it, I'm pretty sure he pulled 501 in training from the floor before that.
I don't know. So the only thing that makes me wonder about it, because I thought, so from everything Thor was saying, I know that he really wanted to take another attempt and go higher. Because I don't think he would have talked all that if he had no intention whatsoever. And if he would have,
he got 501 like 3 weeks ago when he was planning on pulling it in Bahrain. I think he pulled it in training.
I was thinking maybe if he pulled it, he would have either known that he wasn't going to be able to do more after, or maybe he would have been able to do more. I just feel like the fact that he wasn't able to do more after is like, I don't think he was he's ridiculously strong, right? But I don't think he was as powerful as he thought he was going to be in his head the week leading up to this.
I think you're inferring a lot of Thor's. You're inferring a lot of his motivation.
Well,
You're
because
saying that
I'm
he
thinking
said that a lot, but
I don't think he's a liar. Like don't think he was
he's
telling a
not
lie.
a liar.
Exactly.
Nobody.
So he
He
wanted to
said
pull the higher weights, and he
he
thought he could
wanted
pull
to,
the higher weights.
and he didn't. He wanted to, and he didn't. I
Yeah,
said from
because
the beginning it was a mental tactic. If he was mentally prepared to attempt past 520, 501 would still feel like a warm up. Like that's my thought on why he did it that specific way, and why he didn't pull anything after that.
honestly, I just don't know how much is after his 501 because he pulled 501 really cleanly. But the fact that he didn't take another attempt, I don't know how much was after his 501. So that's going to be interesting to see how he follows up. And the other thing is, I hope that the boxing is kind of like in a bad spot because right now Thor is as strong as he's ever been. He would only build on this going forward.
But here's
But
the thing.
now it looks like he's going to drop like 100 pounds in body weight if he's going to try to commit like that.
Thor just dropped a bunch of body weight and came back up. He got injured. He dropped like 80 pounds. He was down to a really, really lightweight, like lighter than he had ever been. And there was a few videos out. I was like, oh damn, that's small Thor. But he actually looks like half Thor. But he can lose weight fairly easily and put it back on just as easily. Yeah. He's been doing it for years. And that's the thing, even in World's Strongest Man, he would compete at a lighter weight than Brian ever competed at. Thor went to World's Strongest Man, I think, like 2013 or 2015 at like 170 kilos, which was super light for him.
Way lighter, yeah.
That's Eddie's walking around weight right now.
Yeah, I'm curious because I honestly thought he had like the 505 or 510 in him. It's just really confusing that he didn't. And I don't think if he honestly believed that he could have got it, that he wouldn't have done it.
You know what? Actually, I'm gonna have to agree and disagree with myself. If he had pulled 501 in training, he would have pulled 505 or at least attempted it, I think.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. And
here's the thing, but sorry, I was just going to say, here's the thing. Everybody talking about the obviously, there was a lot of people going, especially like people who aren't involved in the strength sports world, looking in from the outside, were saying, well, why didn't he go to 510? It was already a 21 kilogram jump on his own PB. MD who lifts weights, like if I was to go in, my best deadlift before was 210. If I was to say, right, I'm going to do 231, it would be a big lift. It would take a lot out of you. So if he hasn't pulled that 501 in training, that 21 kilo jump, no matter how well he's trained, is still a big jump on his last PB. Because I'm pretty sure his PB's 480 or was 480. It's now 501.
I think it was 480.
And I mean, it's a crazy lift. Like only 2 people in history have broken the 500, which makes me think: is it going to be a floodgate?
No.
I mean, not of someone topping 50, like going 501, 505, but
as far as people getting to 501.
As far as people getting to 500.
I think every like 5 years we might get one. Like I think Ivan Makarov has a good chance of doing it. I think Rauno Heinle does if he can stay uninjured for long enough. I think if he
structured
can
like this, I wouldn't put it against Pritchett in an event structured like this. I think Pritchett does really bad at competitions.
Pritchett more than anybody else on the strongman circuit, I think, because of the fact that Pritchett has had time to recover. Pritchett has never taken time to recover himself before. And now he's actually has to, and he doesn't have to compete. And I think that'll be really good for Pritchett.
Yeah, and another has a history of just not doing great after deadlifts in competitions. Yeah. Like they throw him off. So this structured on his time and his environment, I would give the wild card factor to him way more than I would to Thor on this because he seems like the ideal person that this structure would allow him to do something like that.
When you say one in maybe every 5-6 years, then another one to look out for is Luke Richardson. Came from a powerlifting background. So
his powerlifting is great. He is so good.
Comes from a powerlifting background, deadlifts meeting bread for him, and again with the right team behind him, it's the sort of lift you could see him pulling in maybe 4 or 5 years.
I can see that. And I was also going to say he broke the powerlifting record for his age division in like his second time ever entering a powerlifting competition.
It's good. He's had some crazy powerlifting stats for what I remember. Not anything off the top of my head. I would need to look it up, but he did have some
I
big
remember,
stats.
some people were talking about Luke Richardson and him breaking powerlifting world records, like really young.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people I like to see come into strongman because, like, I have nothing against powerlifting. I just think strongman's more interesting.
Richardson's in. Richardson's doing it because Darren Sadler took him under his wing and had him training with him before Britain's Strongest Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you looked at Thor's comments, he says he's the only competition he'll probably be doing the rest of the year is Iceland's Strongest Man. So
okay. I think that gives the rest of the field an advantage too.
That throws off every competition. Like that throws off World's Ultimate Strongman. It throws off.
I think Brian Shaw just is licking his chops right now.
World's Strongest Man. Then any qualifiers for the Arnold going into next year, like it throws off the entire field of play that Thor just said he's not competing for the rest of the year.
Thor didn't do any of the Arnold's qualifier because he won.
He doesn't need to. If you look at it,
he didn't do any of the other ones. So
because he won 2 years in a row now. He doesn't have to do any qualifiers, and he already qualified for 2021. And I was kind of theorizing this, like this is just a total theory I have, that I think Thor, because I said this a couple weeks ago, I think Thor might care now that he's won one World's Strongest Man. He just seems like he's always more interested or excited when he's talking about the Arnold. So I wonder if he maybe cares more about the Arnold than Worlds, so he didn't mind skipping Worlds. And he's already qualified.
Honestly, I think Thor really just wants to do whatever he wants to do. He's like
that, or Thor just really wants to fight Eddie, and Eddie just really wants to fight Thor.
Funnily enough, he's maybe took Eddie's advice that Eddie gave to Brian. If you can't win Worlds 5 times, then why bother with any number underneath it?
But I will say,
if you can't equal Budanovsky, then why even bother after one? So Arnold's might be his main focus.
I would have everyone on the field right now. Thor and as the best chance of winning 4 or 5. But I don't feel like that and now because he's going to skip one. He's kind of focusing on something else. I feel like he had a chance to maybe get 5 or get 6. I think he will still probably get 4. After this is over, he'll still come back and maybe get a couple more. But yeah, he's had a chance to probably do the greatest, maybe. But this really throws it all in a loop. But maybe he just doesn't have the... I mean, that's a big grind to do for that many years.
Well, not just that. The paycheck for Worlds is not great.
No, it's not.
That's a fact. The paycheck in even regardless, all the money Thor would make off of Worlds is kind of pennies in the bucket for him. Yeah, really.
I feel like if you look at Brian and the top people at Worlds, they're making way more off of like the sponsorships they're taking to Worlds than the money they're making at Worlds. It's like not even close.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, Rob Kearney just got sponsored by Gymshark. Gymshark is a major clothing wear company. Like, they're big.
Yeah. See, the only problem I have with this, I feel like this is comparing... See, Big Z said something... When I watched Big Z, think it made perfect sense to me. First of all, every organization should be able to set the rules and govern themselves. Like, who's anyone to tell anyone else to do, right?
You can talk to each other about if you want things to be standardized, and if you disagree, that's okay. Yes.
And then you can have this one just can have its record, and then just can have that record. So I feel like Thor just set like in this new vein of records, which I don't think I think we're going to see a ton of these going forward. This style and the exact same way Thor went about it, he's going to have challengers challenge him the exact same way. And then the Eddies 500 competition is going to be challenged the exact same way. So I would say that they both have world record deadlifts. You have the all-time competition
Eddie never did
deadlift,
have a world record.
And then you have Thor's, which is the competition or out of competition, the most weight ever pulled from a deadlift bar in a standard equipped setup.
The thing is, outlets don't really care about the difference. I will say it is absolutely fair for anybody to challenge this 500 kilo Thor's record in the setup Thor did. If you challenge this record if you beat this record in the way Thor did, in the exact way, it counts. No matter if there is competitions available or not. I will say that. Even
and
though
I want to see
right
more
now
of these.
Thor cannot do a competition, if you were to challenge this one record, I think if you did it under the same circumstances, same rest times, same weight jumps, if you want to break it, but
but under World's Ultimate Strongman
with one of their judges that they have approved,
and this is a World's Ultimate Strongman, and the way that they're doing these records, the way that the log press is going to be set, these are their own vein of records, and I think they're going to get crazy. Because if you could even go to Eddie's reason why he did, like what he was saying was he wanted to go for a log press world record, but he hurt his foot and couldn't get it. And then he felt like his foot was good like 3 weeks later, and he's like, hey, can I go for this? And they're like, no. Well, something like this could have been a out of competition, but not unofficial. Because you're having official judges, everything about it's official. It's just not competition. It's not a competition setting.
And
so
I have to agree. I was a little bit contentious at first, but I will agree competition settings are completely different, regardless of however you do it outside of a competition. When other people have to lift too, it's just different.
It adds that level of chaos. You've got that level of chaos around about you.
That level of chaos and stress in the energy of the people around you. Because it's not just your energy, it's the energy of the athletes around you. Like, let's say that your best friend, your favorite strongman that you love to talk to, just failed his deadlift. He's going to try not to let his energy affect you, but it might. It might affect you just a little bit. Especially if he was hoping for this, if he was like hoping for
you get a super sterile mental environment. In these kind of weights, mental plays into it.
You don't have a team, a whole team of your own people filling that back room either.
Well, if you're Thor,
you've got a couple of bodies. There's also that one, isn't there? Obviously, Thor and
that's I've heard
18 coaches at the Arnold's.
Yeah.
But he's a big guy. He's got to carry around a lot of people.
But see, there's times where someone isn't good enough to maybe that's questionable to like. They may not be in a world situation but you can always set up something like this.
Well, the other thing is, I'd like to see more records like this broken. This was kind of fun. I actually did like to see this. I like to see specific lifts in strongman only because like.
Well, and I like the fact that there's chance for slight more optimization, because I don't know. I'm curious to see how high I can get. Because Eddie just did a podcast talking about when he pulled I think it was what did he pull before 500? It was like, what was his 480?
486. I think it was. Yeah, I think 486. He pulled that in the competition.
So he was talking about how he brought his own mats. Because the mats there tend to roll up and stop the bar when you're trying to roll it. So he put on his mats and everyone just used his mats instead. And that's a thing of like, you can sort of optimize. So I was
going to say about optimization, as soon as we started adding like a real max deadlift, like a really like specific max deadlift, everybody's deadlift numbers on average went up. Same with max log press. Everybody's averages started going up when we started
standardizing
stuff.
Yeah.
When the averages go up for strongman, that's kind of what we want. We want the weights to go higher. And one of the ways to push the weights higher is to push these world records in specific events under specific rules. That's cool too.
So on that, do you think with the 501 being broken, that will see an end to the max deadlift in the next couple of competitions? Or do they keep it?
Absolutely not.
I think this is now even more controversial because
that's actually the other thing I was arguing for at first. I was kind of I get annoyed at this stuff because now max deadlift is going to be in probably the next 2 years. They'll probably lighten up on it because nobody will really be at the right conditioning level and the right training level for it. Especially with all the competitions being kind of like crowded. Max deadlifts take a lot out of athletes in a competition, so I think they might limit that event a little bit. only because of the toll on the athletes and the shorter schedule we're about to have. Hello.
Yeah,
I just
welcome.
think that they've put it in over the last couple of years because they've wanted Thor to beat the 500, and now that he's beat it and possibly isn't going to be competing for the next 6 to 12 months, then they might drop it just on the basis that is there anybody else in the next 6 months that will beat it? I mean, unless you're giving Ivan Makarov a guest invite as a guest lifter at a Giants Live, then who else steps up and beats that 501? And that's not to say that Makarov doesn't. And that's not to say Makarov doesn't beat it in September. He's going for it. He says he's going to pull 520 in September.
And Eddie did set it at a deadlift competition. So I'm sure if they have another Giants Live deadlift competition where they invite out the top power lifters as well as the strongmen, I don't see his 500 holding forever. I just think that's the way he wanted to see it go.
I was also Makarov has pulled 520 from blocks just below his knees.
Yeah, how high was Eddie's book lift?
18 inches.
It was 18 inches.
And so what was his when he pulled it from below his knees? Was that like a 16 or a 14?
Typically, it was below the knees for like a 6-foot strong man. It's the 18 inch, yeah.
So that would have been the same as Eddie. So he pulled about the same. I'm just trying to judge his lift with Eddie's lift since it was the same height.
The book lift wasn't.
It wasn't official, right? But I'm just trying to gauge his strength
versus
his strength. Either. Yeah, because you can't really. But
no, the weight was a little exaggerated.
Because that would have been he did about 540 on that, which is the same as what he pulled. So that shows that he's at least in the neighborhood of Eddie's strength.
Yeah, I think
18 inches, they pulled about the same.
I think if Makarov had got that lift above his knees, he would have got
absolutely. He would have got it. He was like literally like I think that far from the range of motion he needed to complete that lift.
It was inches.
It was inches. But I was also going to say about Makarov. Well, I mean, Tom McGee pulled an actual 525 kilo silver dollar deadlift, but his deadlift off the floor wasn't that great. The reason I don't like max deadlift events is because you can always guess who wins. Like if you look at the competitions with a max deadlift for the past 4 years, I can guarantee you,
unless an injury.
Well,
because you just look back the last 3 or 4 competitions and you kind of know.
Even with an injury, Pritchett usually pulls more than people before he gets injured. Like
until he gets injured, man, I wish he would take.
Like maybe World Ultimate Strongman in the last one they did, Brian Shaw didn't do as well in the deadlift as everybody expected.
No, I also think Brian Shaw wasn't being completely open about some injuries into the state that he was in.
Oh yeah, he also has said that since. He's like, I probably was more injured than I really gave myself time to recover from.
Like, there's no reason for Brian Shaw to ever pull less than 1,000 pounds in any given day unless he's injured. And
when you were mentioning the silver dollar,
it shakes. It's so like I think it's closer to an elephant bar deadlift than it is like a regular deadlift bar deadlift.
Adam Bishop's looking to beat the silver dollar deadlift.
Oh yeah, he did a 500 kilo one just not that long ago.
I don't know if Core Sports or World's Ultimate Strongman fancy tapping him up to do that, but if they've got a spot left on the schedule, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
That's the gray area though. So like stuff like the silver dollar deadlift or stuff that's like sort of fun traditional stuff. Even if you're doing like natural stone, because every natural stone's different.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those records. I don't know if they need the same level of officiating, because are you going to have someone sit there and weigh every, like, I don't know.
Have you seen the silver dollar deadlift setups they have now? They're pretty fucking good. They just go on the end of a regular deadlift bar and you stack plates. And so you can use calibrated plates and you can weigh everything beforehand. So
I necessarily wouldn't be like Magus and Max and has to be there for that one kind of lift.
No, I was also going to say like
that one I feel like everyone would be a little more flexible on the because we kind of are getting to it.
Breaking that one outside of competition, honestly. Like
yeah.
I think
it's a circus lift.
Yep, I was going to say circus lifts. I don't necessarily know if circus lifts need the same level of officiating.
We don't need.
I feel like people can have fun with those.
because car deadlifts, the leverages kind of change depending on the car. Like even the same two cars can be a little bit different on the same car deadlift frame, just based on like wear and tear on the car. So
What about
we
just
don't
the
need a
tires?
max car deadlift, like exactly. But I still
How
want to
many
see
Hummers?
heavy car deadlifts. Like that, I want to see those. Those are fun.
Yeah, I almost feel like how
Yeah.
strongman should be struck going forward is kind of seeing how this plays out. Is there should be like 2 super technical, like done by the rules lifts, and then kind of 3 more like car deadlift, silver door deadlift,
Yeah.
like the non like 2 record events, 3 non-record events.
Well,
It'd be
I
a
wouldn't
good
even say
mix.
record. I would just say like
Done
standardized equipment.
Yes, 2 standardized lifts done like to the standardized way, and then have fun with the other 3. Kind of mix it up.
You could even switch that around and do like 3 standardized lifts and 2 kind of, because that'll give the athletes a little bit more to train for. A little easier for them to train, because that's another thing the athletes. Thor has been critical about World's Strongest Man for that reason. Is they don't really like. Well, Eddie has too actually, about not really giving the athletes time to prepare to not get hurt. Because like the yoke that they did, the 1,200-pound yoke, they didn't tell anybody they were doing that heavy of a yoke until like 2 weeks beforehand, and that's not enough time for a yoke like that.
I always feel like World Ultimate Strongman is just the least good. Like, it doesn't feel like it's anywhere near well managed as the Arnold, and even World Ultimate Strongman, it's only been here for like 2 years now.
Yeah, but like, what were you saying, Caldo?
The 2 weeks, 2 weeks notice they were given for for that stuff, and it's one of those ones where I think people were training expecting something around the 500 kilo mark, and then 2 weeks out they get told 2 weeks out when they've got a week left of training, and then a week's deload they get told, oh by the way, the heaviest yoke have probably been training, he's best add 150 kilos to that, and we know it's only 10 steps, but we're going to put it at the end of a medley. you're like, yeah. Thanks for that, boys. We'll enjoy that in the hot Florida heat.
One athlete completed all 3 yokes.
I think it's definitely something we've covered before, but I think if you want to put on the best show, then give these guys the events. They need to know what they're doing, and then they can train and put on the best that they can physically. If you don't let them know, I get that they want people to be all rounded, but if you don't let them know, they're never going to be able to. You're never going to be able to turn around and say, 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, like even 2 months. Like if it's like what Justin was saying, where you have like 3 standardized lifts and 2 kind of out there lifts, you could tell like 5 months ahead of time, hey, you have these 3 guaranteed for these weights. 2 are mystery for now, and then like 2 months out, here are the other 2.
Here's the circus lifts, because you can't have strongman without some circus lifts.
Yeah.
So on the subject of the circus, how do we feel the boxing match is going to go?
I don't know. I was way more confident about Eddie until I just watched an hour-long interview with Eddie Hall. When his first line talking about the boxing match was, how many rounds are there in boxing? And then he's like, no, I've only ever gone to somewhere between 30 to 40 like boxing like sessions in my life. I was like, oh, well, my confidence in him just dropped like
mine still hasn't. Mine still hasn't.
And then Thor's like, I'm not doing strongman for the remainder of the years, and I'm just focusing on boxing for the next like 8 months, 9 months. I'm like, oh wow.
Let me ask you guys a question. Have you guys watched any of the other strongmen who have went to boxing? Have you watched their matches?
Nope.
No.
Not a one.
Just do, please.
I'm assuming it's awful.
Before you start talking more about Eddie and Thor, just watch any of them. Even Pujanowski, who's been doing it for like 5 years, 6 years, training the entire time, he still sucks. He still gets beaten more often than
but he's still a big draw because of who he is.
He's a celebrity.
If this was like MMA, I would still say Eddie's, because I feel like he's scrappier, like just. But since this is boxing, the scrappiness and like his fighting attitude, it's all technical form and technique in boxing. If
I've,
the street fight doesn't do good in a boxing ring.
Yeah, but if you can punch, you can punch, though. I mean,
Aye.
and if you can take a
That's-
punch, taking a punch is the thing.
Taking
And
a
I
punch
think
is a really big part, but if you can't hit people, there's no like. It doesn't matter how many punches you can take.
You don't win by
The other
knocking out
thing
their fist with
about
your
Eddie
forehead.
Is that Eddie at his current size, which is I'm guessing what he would be boxing at.
Oh no, he
still
said he
not
was going to
very-
drop weight. He said he was
yeah,
going to drop
weight.
He would have.
He just said this in an interview like an hour ago. That he plans on dropping even more weight. He made it sound like he was going to drop maybe another 50 pounds.
I still think that Eddie, like, cut weight is way less athletic than Thor. Because Thor has done movie and athletics before strongman.
So the Eddie was a champion swimmer.
Oh,
Yeah, I
he
was gonna
was?
say-
I
So
forgot
so
about
he's
He has
explosive.
cardio.
His speed's
and he's
explosive.
always
So
trained mass reps over. Because if you look at every other strongman, it's like I'm going to do deadlift day. I'm doing like 30 deadlifts total. Eddie's like, we'll start off with sets of 20 as fast as we can, and then we'll work
Yeah.
up to heavy. So, but
but Eddie's conditioning is only good for those short bursts of time. He's not good after that time. Like if he doesn't have a really long time to cool down and recover, he's not good to go again.
we'll see, because they both have now they both have basically a year to focus on it. Thor included. See, my initial thoughts about this was I'm like, Thor's going to take 6 months off. He's going to take the gap after Worlds this year all the way until the Arnold next year, which is a 6-month period to do this, and then they'll probably fight like in January. The fact that he said he's going to take all this time off and focus on it just as serious as I know Eddie's focusing on it, and they're both Eddie needs to drop like 50. I think Thor's probably planning on dropping 100. They easily can both do it just by eating less caloric intake and working out the same amount. And how focused they are on training, I feel like they're both going to get the cardio. I just don't know if they're going to have the technique. So I'm confident in their cardio and in their physicality. I
I'm
just
not
don't know
confident in
about
Eddie's
technique, man.
training since he quit doing strongman. Eddie has not been like regular. He trains some, I know, but he's not training at the same level he was, or
He's
even
not training at the
level
same
Thor is.
weight that he was,
But-
because
but
he's
for
training
us-
like tons of reps lately.
for a 7-figure sum, he'll be training as
Yeah.
hard as he did for World's Strongest Man. He's already
Yeah,
said he'll be
he said
training
That's
as
the
hard
other
as he
thing
did.
too. Like these guys are both professional athletes. At the end of the day, they're both professionals. So they're getting a big payday for doing this. They're going to train very hard. So Justin, your thing about the technique, they're both professional athletes and both very athletic and have athletic past. So they're
Yeah.
going to learn those techniques.
Well, I know they're
And
going to get the physicality. I just don't know
Well,
how long it takes to learn boxing. And as someone who's
that's
never
what I
done
was-
boxing, I just don't know. I feel like if you're as focused and as zoned as you possibly can, and you're as good as you possibly can be at learning, there's still just a time and a curve to learning anything.
I've done
Maybe
I've
it's
done a
safe
white
to
collar
that
boxing
better.
match. I done a white collar boxing match. I done 12 weeks of training and done a boxing match. It was 3 2-minute rounds for charity, and it's everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Is
Exactly.
probably the best way to describe it. I went in with the idea. We were fairly even matched. Yeah,
Go.
we were fairly even matched, height wise, weight wise, but my fitness levels were so much like far in advanced, as I was training to run a half marathon, I was lifting weights and I was doing boxing training all at the same time. And I went in and I was like, right, I'm just going to stick move, and as soon as he punched me in the face, it looked like a WWE contest. Both of us hooked a hand round the back of each other's heads, and it was just raining punches. It was a ridiculous first 30 seconds, and I was like, yeah, this wasn't the game plan. But as soon as he punched me, I was like, no, there's no idea. I'm just going to keep going now.
I don't want to let that happen again.
It was funny because I thought all this stuff was myth, but I got into the corner and I was looking for where my stool was at the end of the first round, and he's like, the guy, my corner guy, was saying, no, stand. And he's like, look over there, and the other guy was slumped in the corner looking at me, and I'm still standing up just getting a drink of water, and he's like, yeah, your conditioning's miles ahead of him. He says, just move for the next 2 rounds and you've got this. So the training will be intense for both of them, but if they take it, I still think it will be down to who takes the training the most seriously. And as you were saying, if Thor splits his training by keeping doing the strongman stuff and doing the boxing on the side, then I wouldn't I wouldn't rate his chances. But
I
if the
don't
two of
think
them
you
take
can
it seriously,
for boxing, I don't think you can do any other sport training or any other kind of training and do boxing just because
No.
of the very, very specific level of like skill, reflexes, and fitness. I think that whoever takes the training and learns more techniques and learns more about the technical aspect of boxing will win. And I think Thor has a higher capacity to learn more of the technical stuff and be patient. Be really patient with it and just take his time and not rush things. I think Eddie will rush, and I think that will make.
That actually makes sense, Matt, because I think the capacity thing. I just think Thor's going to be more patient than Eddie. I think
The other thing
when that
is
bell
that Eddie
dings,
has
Eddie's
fighting
coming out
experience.
swinging.
Eddie has
And
fighting
hard.
experience, which actually gives him a bad kind of confidence in boxing.
He has street fight experience because he was a bouncer and ran a security company and throw people out in the thing. But that's like scrapping in the
That
street
was
with
a
no
long
technique and
time
just
ago.
swinging.
Also, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since Eddie got in a fist fight with somebody.
Well, so like those fist fights don't really calculate at all to boxing in any way, shape, or form because he's just rolling on the ground swinging.
that was the
And
point I
that's
was trying to get across there. Was that as soon as he punched in the
when you
face,
get hit by somebody who knows how to punch, like the right way to punch you, like if you're coming the wrong way and you catch that fist,
They spar
it's completely different.
Who shows up to training camp to get punched in the head by Thor or Eddie Hall?
Professional level trainers who.
Oh, yeah, because
I'm just waiting. Pay me enough and I'll go to Iceland. He can punch me about. Fucking give me a 4-figure something. I'll go over and he can punch me about.
I'll teach Thor Muay Thai. I'll teach him to break motherfuckers' ribs.
I did notice that this is the biggest.
I don't think you're allowed to
ever
clinch
looked.
in boxing, right, Matt? Like you can't get your clinch on.
You're not. You can clinch, but you're not supposed to knee somebody after the clinch.
Well, I mean, then it's not.
Bad
Then what's the point of
sportsmanship in
clinching
boxing
then?
Right? There's no point in clinching. Like you can do the body shots, but clinching.
You can
is
hug, and then they separate you because you're not allowed to be intimate during boxing.
Kicks too. If you've trained Muay Thai, Matt, then you know about this. I've had a couple Muay Thai matches, so they're fun.
So if you were to do a strongman sort of thing, you wouldn't want to take a punch off Mark Felix because he's got huge hands, and you probably wouldn't want to take a kick off Tom Stoltman because he's massive feet.
Oh, well, also, any of the strongmen with long legs, any of the strongmen who are good at the running events can kick hard.
Because they're kicking off the ground. So like when Mateus was walking with when he was running with the farmer's carry, right? He had one leg on the ground at a time. He's one leg squatting. What was it? 850. It was like 850 pounds plus his own body weight. So he's one leg pushing. Well, yeah, he's one leg pushing like 1,100 pounds with each step and just slamming. So that means like if you're gonna like old school karate kick you, that's like 1,100 pounds of pressure throwing your ass backwards.
It would be a big slow kick. I mean.
You could go make coffee.
Without any training, you could probably bounce back on that because Muay Thai kicks, especially, are real slow.
It's just the thought of taking a slap off Mark Felix's massive hands.
But would the surface area make it better though? Would you not want someone like
there's more weight behind it. The surface area does not.
But what about someone like Kearney who has really small hands but a lot of force, that pounds per square inch? Or Mark Felix, he's gonna be the entire side of your head. You're gonna have like half of your body and surface area to take a slap from Mark Felix.
So imagine hitting yourself like this. If you do it fast, that's gonna hurt. But that's the thing about a slap is that the weight's dispersed, and so you actually create more concussive damage. That's the part.
Let's see if Mark Felix can slap a cinder block. Just looks like it just explodes.
Put that on the World Ultimate Strongman records. Mark Felix just slapping his way through walls. That'd be awesome. I'd pay to watch that.
I think I would too, to be fair.
You see that like it's popular in Russia now, the slap contest. So someone like Mark Felix shows up, everyone goes home.
They've definitely put together a good card, mind you. I mean, regardless of how people feel about whether or not it's official records or not, when you look at the log, the Atlas Stone, deadlift for reps, Novikov doing the dumbbell for reps, they've put together a good card to keep people entertained over the next few months.
Well, and keep the strongmen paid. Like,
and the thing is, I have a hard time saying. So I have almost impossible. I do not think it supplants competition records, but at the same time, I don't think you can call it unofficial when they weigh every single piece of the entire kit in front of Magus and Magus.
No,
that was not official.
It's official. It's just not this. It's apples and oranges in a way.
I posted the Highland Games World Records has a specific entry for a guy who didn't compete. It's not a big deal. He didn't finish all the events. They just have a note for it.
I think that obviously when I was saying unofficial was more just for the fact that while I don't think there was anybody who would have pitched up and said, right, well, if Thor wants some competition, I'll go head to head to him. But you've got a couple of people who would maybe say the different about that with Luke Stoltman's next week. And say, well, I quite fancy challenging Luke Stoltman on that log record and don't have the opportunity. Obviously, people saying that they would have wanted the opportunity to deadlift against Thor weren't deadlifting 501 yesterday. But could Iron BB maybe turn around and say, well, I could do 230. Let's go head to head.
Which they should, which he should be able to. So if Wuss is going to run it like this, right? Then they should. Anyone who has a legitimate claim to potentially breaking it, they need to do it if they want it, and it stays in this separate non-competition. Also, I think all of Rogue's record breakers where only one person competed by themselves against nobody is no different than Thor's. Like, especially this last one when there was no audience there and they just did it. I feel like some of those might need to be looked at to be put in this category with Thor's, where they're legitimate. They have professional people. Like, everything's weighed.
In general, in strongman, we should try and break away from minor records. We should try and break away from so many different of the categories.
One representation from each category. Yeah, because pretty much have
that. Like, there's so many different organizations. Like, in order to find out, the other day on the Starting Strongman page, one of the guys under 105 kilos was trying to find the under 105 kilo log records. And they had to ask several connections through several different strongman groups to find if anybody had lifted a log heavier than this guy had lifted. And he's like, hey, I think I can break this record. And he kind of just has to do it and ask, hope that in a competition they have a log record. Ginger Beast was talking about that. He was invited to break the deadlift record and he said no because it wasn't in the competition. I think people are free to do that if they wish, and think that.
But it also should supplement competition. So I think the reason I think
I don't think we should have world records in competition.
Or have competition records and then outside of competition. You can maintain competition records and outside competition records as two separate categories. And the outside competition ones have to be official. Like, if they follow Thor's template completely, even with other, the Wuss is going to put up a really good template for how this needs to be done. And then they're in their own category of records. They're legitimate world records. It's just a different world record. You have the competition deadlift record, and you have the...
From now on, Rogue would have to go by Wuss's terms, or kind of their...
Oh no, you would just have Wuss do it. If Rogue has Rogue record breakers, but I'm saying mentally, I would put Rogue record breakers in the same category as these World Ultimate Strongman records.
Yes,
if they had no one to compete against.
The difference between that...
Go ahead.
The difference between that and the Wuss ones is, do you not have to prove you can beat that record for the Rogue record breakers via video evidence before you get the invite? It's not about them just inviting who they want over. You need to prove to them. I think they give people a couple of months in advance to say, right, this is the record we want to beat. Can you do that? Because that's how you ended up with 3 people doing the Atlas Stone.
That just started this year.
Right. So they've checked that. So they've changed the format.
Yes,
and that's a competition, though.
Better, yes.
When you have a Rogue record breaker with 3 people going for the same record, that's a competition. But if you look at the last Arnold, there was Rogue record breakers with no one in the stands and one person competing for one record and no one challenging them. And I have a hard time saying that those particular records are any different than what Thor did on a fundamental level.
I would agree with that. I would also, though, say that Rogue is not going to be on that same page.
And I don't think they'll have to ever be again because I think they'll probably be able to get multiple people at these attempts and they'll be in front of competitions. But
I think from now on, if you can have the conditions be the best you can, like the most, it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least somewhat like competition is these rules, non-competition is these rules ish.
yeah,
But I like seeing like the women's elephant bar deadlift record. That was fun to watch. There was a bunch of girls who could almost break it. Like,
Yeah, that one was one of my favorite record breakers. Next to Tom taking the stone, I
Yeah.
just that
taking the
was
stone was just so easy. Like,
like I wish Brian would have at least tried it. Like, I bet Brian could have done it even like.
and so like in my head, when Tom obviously does it again, he'll have the outside of competition heaviest stone over bar, and he'll have the competition heaviest stone over bar. So he'll have 2 world records instead of just having 1 world record. Instead of having the heaviest, he'll have the competition and out of competition. So it'll actually be 2 separate records.
We don't even know that this one's going to be over bar. This might be stone to platform as well.
Yeah, because the other one was over bar.
The other one's over bar, so this might be a stone to platform. Might not be over bar.
Do they specify or they just say stone?
I thought
stone
it was
record,
over,
but
I thought it was stone over bar, but
over bar. Well, what about Julius Maddox? He's breaking the bench press world record. Powerlifting.
No, that's powerlifting. See, yeah, powerlifting. From what I've heard from powerlifters, they're like you spend your first whole part of your career doing powerlifting meets with no one in your weight class, competing against nobody, and a lot of times only doing one lift. So in powerlifting, they really, from what I've heard from powerlifters, like big ones on YouTube, that's just how they do things.
Competition doesn't matter. The thing is, powerlifting competitions are a little bit more structured. It's still chaotic. The energy is chaotic, but it's pretty structured. Like
that was powerlifting competitions in their gyms, so they're already in their gyms, and sometimes and they're the only one in their weight class. And you have like 12 people doing the meet. Even at some higher levels, you'll have situations like that. So in powerlifting, because it's always done at their gyms and it's not like usually not done in some big spectacle like a strongman setup. They just seem to have not really cared that much about it from what I've seen.
Steffi Cohen was talking about it on her podcast, and basically her and Alex said that if she felt she could break a record, they could throw a meet together really quickly just so she could break the record. Because you just need her and another couple of people and a referee.
Yeah, they have the rules set out. They're like, hey, if you want to break this record, these are the rules. If you follow these rules under our organization, that's a record under our organization. Like,
and that was a big point that Big Z said, is that he's like, organizations should be free to make their rules, to do how they think to be done, and it's hard to argue against.
If you want to talk to other organizations, if they want to agree that this is the way a record should be done, that's cool too. I think that's also what they should be doing. Like, I think all of it's good. I think that I'm not going to watch the boxing match because it's not really.
I think it's going to be shit out of that boxing match.
I'm watching it. I'm organising a party in the gym and I'm watching it.
Yep. I'm not watching that. I'm going to be in a big room of people watching that with like buffalo sauce all over my shirt, and it's going to be great.
I watched McGregor versus Mayweather. I'm watching any circus boxing match. I watched that nonsense, so I'm watching this.
Dude, McGregor had it for the first 4 rounds, though. I was surprised.
If I wanted to watch something like this, I'd go back to watching WWE. Okay.
That's the other thing about Eddie too. Is one thing I will say is I think people are overplaying up the angle that Eddie said he almost died. Eddie almost died from being as big as a person he was for as long as he was, not pulling the deadlift itself.
He trained really dumbly,
and he trained for that deadlift in the deadlift suit only 2 weeks before pulling it. He collapsed on the ground because he couldn't breathe. Not because like the deadlift itself killed. As soon as they get the suit off of him, he hops up and gives an interview.
He did get a stroke. He literally did have a stroke from that deadlift. He had a transischemic attack, which is a stroke.
He also went to hospital a couple times because his body was having a horrible time maintaining his heart rate because his potassium was all over the place. It'd be like 30 beats per minute and then jump up to like 150. But that was more just to how much mass and how he was putting it on his frame, and his body couldn't support it. But he pulled that off the ground. So when I was comparing their deadlift side by side, Thor's deadlift never changes speed. It comes off the ground, stays at the exact same speed, and goes to lockout. Eddie yanks that bitch up to like a couple inches above his knees before it even begins to slow down. So Eddie has it all the way up to like the bottom of his shorts
Did you
before
see Big
Thor
Laws
even gets it like what?
Did you see Big Laws on Instagram posted a side by side bar, like side by side comparison of them? It's really good.
But Eddie can't get the lockout as fast as Thor. Like Eddie gets it right up there, and then he struggles on the last inch to get his back straight, where Thor just goes right there.
I thought Eddie's lift looked a lot cleaner than it did after watching it on slow mo. Like watching it on slow mo, I was like, "Ooh, that was a lot rougher than I thought it was."
Everything looks shittier in slow motion, like when you're analyzing it.
Yeah.
But it just shows that I was initially trying to see whose deadlift was better, but then when I watched it, they're using two entirely different techniques. Eddie's training super explosive to just rip it, and Thor is like a tractor, just same speed. And if you look at Thor's bar, it never shakes.
I posted something in the Strongman channel. Guys, look at that real quick, and you'll see exactly what Justin is talking about right there. It's really good.
He just rips it like all. Also, here, look at Eddie's weights. That one actually it actually plays them at separate speeds, but it's just trying to keep the bars synced up.
Yeah.
If you look at Eddie's weights on the side, they bounce around a lot. If you look at Lore's weights,
they don't even.
Well, that's just because he's ripping it. Thor is mechanically pulling it up like a tractor, and Eddie rips it off the ground. Eddie gets it to like right where his shorts are when Thor has it at his knees. And then Thor continues it up like a tractor into a perfectly straight lockout where Eddie yanks it all the way up about 1 inch short. And so then he just has to do a quick little hop and lean his back back.
Mateus locks out like that a lot.
And then the other thing is, Eddie decided to do an Eddie, and he just didn't set the bar down. I timed it. Thor held it for 5 seconds. Eddie held it for 10 for no good reason except he was being Eddie Hall. Like, and I'm sure that didn't help holding it twice as long, but I'm not saying Thor couldn't. Thor just had literally no reason to sit there and hold the bar for like 10 seconds.
It was a super clean lockout. Like, that lockout was so, like, textbook.
But they're very different styles.
Bounced and stopped. Like, it was good. I like seeing it.
And like it kind of shows you how to train. If you look at Thor's schedule, he does less volume, but he's super clinical. So he gets this perfect tractor clinical vertical. You look at Eddie. Eddie's like, all right, we're gonna put 225 pounds on the bar, and you're gonna rip it off the ground as fast as you can for 20 reps. And we're gonna do this like 3 times before we even start seriously deadlifting. And so you see the explosion versus the. It's interesting because how different their techniques are and how much they're both able to pull using a fundamentally different like mindset of how to get it off the ground. Like,
absolutely. Well, the other thing about Eddie and Eddie's deadlifting is that Eddie trained to kind of peak and burn out. Yeah. Honestly. Eddie's training schedule was never going to be able to maintain anything. Like Eddie was not training to maintain that strength ever.
He was also sleeping 4 hours a night for like 5 years. Because for a while his
other recovery methods were fucking out of this world though. Like he did more recovery than anybody else because he trained more than anybody else. And a lot of that recovery probably didn't do much, and it just made him feel better.
The thing that frustrated me when I watched it was that he didn't go past 501. And it was very clear that this was who was the better deadlifter. And I feel like this is apple to oranges because of the situation. And I felt like he needed to pull a 505 or 5010 to cover the gap on the differences. Because even with all the benefits you can argue for Thor, pulling 505 would have left no doubt in my mind that extra 5 kilos more than would make up for any advantages. But 1 kilo, I feel like it's up in the air, and I really either they play maybe either they never
I think
resolve this,
is
or maybe
that-
Thor gets 505 and puts it to bed. But maybe the drama's better for both of them publicity-wise, for Thor to leave it at 501 in this style, and Eddie has 500 in competition, and they just both ride this feud to like
a
mansions in
controversial
Beverly
record
Hills.
More profitable.
Yeah.
But also,
unless Makarov beats it in September.
Unless he just comes in and gets 505 and it
could
takes all
absolutely
of the
happen.
steam.
But the thing is, though, I would absolutely argue that Thor is a better deadlifter overall than Eddie. Regardless of Eddie might have pulled a very heavy weight, but like Thor has pulled more than him now. Like it
was pulled more by 1 kilo
longer.
in
Could you
a
make it-
different style lifting event.
So on a
I
powerlifting
can't give
sort
it
of
to
style, could you make an argument for pound, Eddie Hall was stronger in his deadlift given his lower body weight?
For pound for pound arguments.
And you got to remember,
Yeah.
Eddie Hall at all times has 16 pounds of cheesecake in his stomach. So whatever
And
his weight
he's
is,
not-
you got to remove the
and he's
8
not
kilos
properly
of
hydrated.
cheesecake. Yeah,
But,
and we've
okay,
never seen a
Never
hydrated Eddie Hall.
hydrated.
Here's the thing about strongman. We don't give a shit about pound for pound. This
No,
is strongman.
you can't. No, you can't make that argument.
We have never cared about pound for pound, and we have always made fun of that argument. If one of the heaviest guys who has ever competed in strongman says that I was pound for pound stronger than that guy,
He loses. He loses instantly.
Yeah, loses
and
by
all
default,
future
yeah.
arguments.
they lose to. I mean, there's 16-year-old girls who can technically bodyweight deadlift more than they can.
Probably
Like-
90 pounds if you can pull like 200, which I don't think is impossible with the proper training.
Yeah, like
That's like 2.5 times body weight. And Thor weighs how much? Thor weighs 440 pounds.
or 60 because he was
460.
206.
So let's
I
just say
think he
that's
said he
200.
weighed
What?
210
225?
kilos. 210 kilos, he said. The
So that
official
would be,
strongman page said he was 210 kilos.
I thought he said he was around 206 when he was talking to Brian, and I thought that's
Well,
what he said.
everyone always says they weigh more when they're talking to Brian. Have you noticed that? Everyone, when they talk to Brian, they add an extra 10, 15 pounds to their body weight. Like when
Well,
Brian
another
asks how
thing
much
is
they
that-
weigh.
If
In
that's the
most
case, I
cases-
never want to talk to Brian.
It's like adding inches, man. Like whenever they talk
Okay.
to Brian, it's like
So another thing I learned about World Strongest Man, Brian doesn't let himself get weighed before the contest. He'll tell them his weight. He'll be like, I weigh this much. Put that on the screen.
Brian's a big boy. But
So what do we
in-
think?
I think
What do we
in my
think about
mind right now-
Luke's?
Oh, Luke's
next week?
got it. Luke just
Oh, I
did
think
it.
Luke's got it. I
He
just
just did
think
it
that
today,
I think
right?
Bibby could have done it as well, and I really would have liked to see them give Bibby a chance to do it along with Luke. I think that would have been really awesome. But I think
it would have
that
been
Bibby
fun.
can do it too.
So I think it
I
would have
think
been
that-
fun to have Big Z there as well as like a farewell thing. He obviously wouldn't have won, but he could still put up a pretty cool number. It would have been really cool to see him, BB, and then maybe you throw in like Oberst and Carney as well. So that way you can have a couple rounds, and then it ends up with just Luke and Bibby going back and forth, slowly pushing up the record.
Well, Graham Hicks was training for it too a little bit. Even Makarov was actually training for it as well. And honestly, though, I think that Iron Bibby, Justin was talking about this. I think Iron Bibby benefits from this kind of setup more than a traditional competition.
He's
Iron
like
Bibby-
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that last night.
Yeah, he's bad about. Yeah, that's what you were saying that then. He's bad about fitness in between events. Like total, if he does it on his schedule, he could probably do the world record today without really like even ramping up for it.
It
But
really
Well,
kind of puts into why competition in these records need to be separate but equal records, just separate records, because pulling these weights
The
is
other-
insane,
the other thing
and they
is,
can't
though,
be.
the kind of lifter and the kind of strongman Thor is, I don't think competition would have affected this specific lift.
It wouldn't have.
I'd say out of a
Although
lot of
other
people,
strongmen
competition would
absolutely-
affect Thor less than probably most of the people on the plane.
Almost anybody in strongman right now, honestly.
I would say Mateus. I don't see Mateus or Martins as well. I feel like those two competition are
Martins
doing
gets
this way would
pressured.
probably hit the sim.
The only way that it
Martins
affects him,
pressured.
the only
Man,
way
I
it
think
affects him
affects Martins
competition-wise
positively.
is that it'll base on what's coming up after that event. So, like, you look at the Arnolds, and he had the chance to do it and win $100,000 to do it, or 101. Arnold's was offered, and he said no. So competition-wise is all about what comes after it and how serious he is
What's
about
next?
winning the competition he's in as well. So it might be a case where, while we all know he can do it, unless he has to, he might never have to push himself to 500 over 500 for a while.
That's what I was saying.
480 could be enough to win whatever max deadlift he's in and walk away unscathed.
Which is another good argument in favor of like these kind of World's Ultimate Strongman one-off events. Is I would like to see like these athletes who we know are all primed to get a record. If it's not in the cards in competition, let's give them an official non-competition chance to just do something crazy. Because
I like that too, because like with Thor, with him not pulling 500 at the Arnold's, like he probably wanted to pull it. I mean, 100 grand is 100 grand. I wanted to see him pull it. I wanted to see him try at least, but I also understand why he didn't. And I think that not doing it was a much smarter.
And this is way more. This is also way more telling and kind of like, because if you're in competition, right, and you're Thor, and you don't go for the 500 kilogram, every single person understands, and everyone's like, he could probably do it, but now if you're doing one of these and you fell, then it's a he can't do it kind of thing.
The events before that affect you too. Like, and so just because Thor can pull 500 doesn't mean he can pull 500 after doing other events or even after traveling. Like, that maybe not Thor. Thor is one of the ones that like just things.
Well, and on the traveling aspect, if we're trying to compare like their two deadlifts together, Eddie pulled it in his like home area, so he didn't have the jet lag effect that other people get in competition.
Yeah.
So I'd say like these are as close as you can compare a competition to a non-competition lift, but I'm still going to keep them separate in my mind. Like Eddie Hall has the all-time competition kind of standardized deadlift. Thor has the all-time outside, and I think both of those records aren't going to last more than a year or two tops.
I think Eddie's deadlift. No, I think Eddie's competition deadlift lasts a lot longer because I think we're gonna. Well, I think we're gonna go. It's easier for the.
It's gonna go more. That's right.
Well, what if they keep doing Giants Live, the deadlift championship?
But they might do it like they did the log lift championship, where they invited some people who weren't competing in the rest of the event, which I really, really like. European, world's strongest European or whatever.
Europe's strongest man.
Europe's strongest man. I couldn't think of the freaking.
We don't usually think about Europe that much, you know. The map centers around us.
The log lift championships was the very first event of the of Europe's strongest man, and it had 4 guest people that were going to come and attempt the record because they had done it before, and all the people who like were competing were like, "Hey, I won the event against all the people who are competing. I don't need to push it any higher." Which is actually why Big Z never really pushed his record any higher. Nobody ever pushed him past that. He was always just did enough of the record to win or get the new world record, and then he would stop. Even if he had more, just because.
See when we're talking about Big Z there, right? So is there an argument that if or when Luke beats this next week on the wooden log, is it a better lift than Big Z on the metal log?
Dude, that is so many layers. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like
I think it's a better lift, and I think it's a stronger lift. I think you need to be stronger to do it, but I still think Big Z was the stronger presser ever.
There's no doubt he's the absolute king of the overhead press. I think if you're looking at that, what I was meaning was just on the basis that obviously there was a lot of back and forth about at the time with the elephant bar. It's a different bar, it's a different setup. It's the exact same thing. It's a different log, it's a different setup. It's the one Big Z done it was a lot more compact. It's maybe easy to keep stable, whereas you do it on the longer log. And
how much does the log weigh? How much does the metal log weigh empty versus how much does the wooden log weigh empty?
There are big differences. I think the Austrian oak that Luke is using is like close to 400 pounds empty.
I would say
180 kilos maybe.
The one that weighs more empty is the harder lift.
Absolutely. And wooden logs are not evenly balanced.
It can be even depending where he's keeping it. if the moisture affects one side and not the other. There was an argument that I think it was at Overhead Medley. It might have been at Europe's as well, and they were saying that a couple of the logs were off just because where they were kept, the dampness had crept into one side of the log but not the other. So when they were pushing them out, they came up off. So then and if MD's pushed a log and it's been off, you felt that weight off. It's really hard to then get that back once you come overhead. So again,
I just did that the other week, earlier this
week.
week.
Like if one of your collars comes a little
Misload.
bit loose, so plate slides over, and you go to push up because this one's a little farther over the edge, it's still plugged with you. I just know the rotational. If you go back to the rotational injury on the log press, like the more plates you have and the least amount of log, it makes it easier to do the rotation.
Well, the bigger plates you have to use in comparison to log matters too. I actually experienced that on our small log. I put big plates on and it threw me back further.
So
also
rotation is pushing the energy
It's also that claustrophobic feeling you get with the bigger plates because you can't really, when you've got the smaller plates, you've almost got that open space. But with the bigger, if you start with the bigger plates like the 20s or the 25s or the 45s, sorry, for pounds, then you've got that boxed in feeling when you're in underneath that. So I found that as well. I don't like using the bigger plates on the log. I like to even it out so that it becomes almost like as one.
I actually, even though the clean, when I have the bigger weights on the smaller log, the clean will push me back further. The press is easier with the bigger weights because it's further behind me already. My issue is letting the log get in front of me. So bigger plates are easier. So I try and use small plates when I do my log, specifically so I can train the stuff that I'm bad at.
Yeah.
So it matters.
I feel like the log is behind the deadlift, where we kind of all agree on this is what is the prototype deadlift for strongman, like the deadlift category. All the others are supplemental. I feel like we're probably working towards
a metal and a wooden log world record separately. I think we could have both of those.
I mean, the people that are setting it will probably have access to. Well, yeah, I don't know. Really, it all depends on what Luke Stoltman and Big Z.
The individual log really matters. One log can be harder than another just because.
Yeah,
I think it's more the log one. I know I brought it up and obviously making a comparison, but the log one's more just an advance on how they make the wooden ones because the metal ones were a necessity, whereas now the wooden ones are more aesthetically pleasing for a competition setting. So you're not.
They've been doing them long enough; they can get them a little bit more dialed in.
I would say that if it's pound for pound, you're probably going to have more issues with a wooden log, especially if it has less plates and a stronger base. So I would say that if he does the same weight as Big Z, he's doing it under a harder log, but under easier circumstances. So he's doing a harder log.
There's no competition. So easier circumstances have it all, but.
Yeah. I was also going to say, Rob Kearney, when he did the team's World's Strongest Man, they had the 200 kilo log that in the log medley, and he almost pressed that. He didn't get it. But the thing is, like, that log they just said was really hard.
Because it had no plates. Yeah, it was an empty log. It was just log and no plates, and everyone who could just nail that same weight with a log and plates felled it right there. Because you had to rotate all the weight. You had none that you could just have the plate spin.
Yeah, so. The whole log was fucking. I think the whole thing was longer than 6 feet. Like it was 7 feet long. It was huge.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see because I also feel like right now the people that have the records are kind of the ones who can figure out and say, hey, this is what's cool, this is what's not. So I feel like it's really kind of up to Luke and Big Z. And the thing that's different about this one is Eddie was really against this from the beginning, and he doesn't consider these official records but separate. He considers it not a record at all, just a gym PR, which I disagree with. But Big Z,
everything for Thor's lift, not the other ones. The other ones are still there, but Thor's lift doesn't count officially.
But Big Z is the one who is the head records officiator for World's Ultimate Strongman now. So the guy who's says what is and isn't and what's okay and what isn't okay has been Big Z officially for the last I think that was 3 weeks ago he got appointed.
Yeah.
So this is
the 2 days after his video talking about the deadlift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think
2
he
days
just wanted to
after,
get his
2
opinion
days,
out before publicly
Aye.
saying he was taking the position.
2 days
Yeah.
after his opinion in World of Strongman are like, do you fancy like coming on the payroll? And Big Z went, well, yeah, sure.
Would you like
That's
a big sack of money? So the fact that it's him and he's the officiator for the whole thing now, and it's his record, and like he kind of
probably
the log
worked
master,
already.
and then it's like Luke, they've talked, they know what is and isn't
Yeah,
considered,
absolutely.
and so for the competition and non-competition setting, I feel like we're gonna have a very uniform concept of this is what is going to be broken in competition and what's going to be broken in non-competition as
See,
the prototype log press.
that's what I think it is too, because Big Z even said, and I'm sure he hasn't wavered. This can be a separate thing. He's not been against them. These are separate than competition.
Yeah.
These are not gonna
It
in
can be separate.
Big Z's
Yeah,
mind and Big Z's ruling. Thor's deadlift didn't take over Eddie's. Luke's log isn't gonna take his log. So until they're I like how Big Z did it, and I like that they made him that head official, whatever, head official
Don't
of
argue with Big
records.
Z. I think everyone was saying like Big Z is law. So World of Strong was like, then let's just get the law. How much does it cost to buy the law?
And
They're listening to it.
Does it not depend what state you stay in or county you stay in America, how much it costs to buy the law?
Oh yeah, it highly depends.
oh, very much.
And it's way cheaper in
That's actually
Mexico
true.
though. You can get out of it. Like, oh, I was going 200 miles an hour. How about a 20? Is that good?
Nah, you need at least 100 now.
Oh, dude,
Dude.
here's yeah.
Just like not in my area.
No, I just love like when anyone so street racing's gotten really big in my area. Like if you look up any of the guys who are doing like the cannonballs or any like that, they're all from Atlanta.
Okay.
And they all I know a couple of them in person. They all refer to whenever they do anything illegal as they took a trip down to Mexico. So they'll sort of like, yeah, I took a trip down to Mexico and we got this thing going up to 200 miles an hour and then we came back from Mexico. And that's illegally because they committed a crime in another country, so the police can't just like mail them a ticket.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
But they open up every illegal story with I went down to Mexico and then the story.
Yeah, I think there's a guy who races he drag races a Tesla that's modded out, and it's fucking he's out of Atlanta, and it's fucking hilarious because people get all mad.
Yeah. But so then what's after Luke's? I just feel like I was really not certain he was gonna get it, and then his Instagram post shut me up real fast.
Look
Yeah,
this weekend. Luke this weekend, then Tom directly the weekend after. So it's
And
the both the Scottish boys, but
and
back to back.
I think it's Alexi after that, and I think it's Rhiannon after that, and I think after that it's Julius or somebody
I
else. So
really
it might be
like
Ernie,
Tom
and then Julius.
because
I
in
think
my
it's
world
pretty
of separate but equal records here, Tom will have the stone record in both categories.
Yeah. Like he basically is breaking his own record. So if anybody can say the record's real or not, it's him.
And well, it depends how he views it too, because he may say he has two records, because two records are better than one, right?
What if they never put another max deadlift in a competition ever?
Then Eddie
Just
is the
because it's not
competition
good.
max deadlift holder till the end of time.
Just because it's good for the athletes, like
Until eventually someone casually pulls 500 when everything else has gotten so good that they're pulling 700 on was.
Or has to pull it in powerlifting a competition and do it as a clean rep, and then there's going to be questions asked.
I was actually talking
questions
to
asked.
a powerlifting person, and they said that Thor probably would have gotten the light because he ramped it, but he never stopped
ramped
moving.
It with straps. It was clean. It was very, very clean, and I don't think he necessarily needed to ramp it. I think he could have not ramped it. I'll give him that. He could have cleaned it, but I don't think he could have done it without straps, so he wouldn't have been able to do it.
He definitely couldn't have. But Eddie couldn't have done it without straps.
Neither of them could. No one can do this without straps.
Yeah, that's this.
But his rep looked clinically powerlifting clean.
Let me see what the current powerlifting deadlift world record.
Isn't the strapless deadlift record Eddie's as well, or did someone break that? Because it was his as of like 2 years ago.
I thought Benny
Magnuson 460.
460.
I think so, because he did it with the alternate grip.
Magnuson 460.
So that's the same jump. Basically, Eddie went from strapped to 500. So who's going to be the strapless person to take it from 460 to 500?
I'd quite like to see that. I'd quite like to see somebody go try to beat Benny's.
I don't know. Holding on to that much weight without
ripping stuff off your body. Like we're starting to come to not the points of like just raw mechanics of how does blood and sinew support this kind of weight. You're 1% water like fluids. How the mechanically
There's-
where do we?
Then that
Arms
ultimate
can't-
grip, isn't that hard on your biceps? That's
It
what
can
they
be
say.
the mixed grip can be
Yeah.
crucial on your bicep. It's really hard on your bicep.
There's how many videos of people doing a heavy deadlift with match grip, and you can just actually see the bicep pop off and roll up the arm.
Disgusting. Disgusting.
How?
460 kilos by Benedict Magnuson in
2018?
2011.
2011. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a very long unbroken record.
Well, that's a lot of weight.
I also
To
wondered
do
how much Thor
without
could do
straps.
strapless.
Well, you know
Four-
what?
440.
So
I think it was 440 when he done his powerlifting competition.
I think he got 420 on the deadlift. He almost got 460 on the squat, but he got red lighted for the deadlift.
So Thor could probably take, in a powerlifting sense, the strapless deadlift as well.
I'm not sure. His grip is really good, but
is it 20 kilos better than it was last time he attempted it, or was his grip even his failure point last time?
His grip was his failure point.
It was his failure point.
Yeah, it was. If you watched it, I posted the video. His grip was his failure point.
When did you post that? Because I would like to see that.
A few months ago, actually. We were talking about Brian versus Thor.
Brian versus Thor in a theoretic powerlifting, because everyone's pretty sure that Brian would blow past him in bench, but is it enough to make up for the deadlift in the squat?
Yeah.
But there's no strap, so that makes the deadlift way closer than it would be.
I think Brian has better grip, but
Brian definitely has better grip, but Thor has a better probably
Thor
back.
won the grip event in 2018. Actually, 2019, Thor won the grip event.
Oh, but that's the one that he won because Brian said he got sweat all over his grip. Yeah, Brian dropped it in like 30 seconds.
Whatever happened, Brian dropped his grip.
So Brian's thing he said was that he had like a sweatband thing around his wrist, and right when he went to grab, like he said, multiple drops fell right into his hand, and just it slipped. So he blames his equipment and sweat, and it was so short of a hold. I think Martine's actually either won that or came in second. That I kind of believe him that there was a moisture issue.
Oh, with what? If Brian does not come in top 3 in a grip event, then there was a catastrophic failure.
Talked about before, when he had his tricep, the same tricep pinch or the same pinch nerve almost that Martine's had, his grip went out for a while, specifically in that hand that suffered.
Yep.
Nagging injuries.
Kearney was the other one we missed when we were talking about the record breakers. The workout. He's on that schedule as well, isn't he?
Yep.
I wonder, Rob Kearney. Do we think?
Rob.
Do we think Oberus goes onto his Instagram live when Rob's doing that to do a bit of trash talk?
So here's my theory. Now here's my theory. Yeah. What Rob is going to do, because Rob is super outspoken. He's in the category of none of this counts. And so I have a feeling Rob, because he said right before Thor pulled his, he's like, I could go over there right now and pull the American record, but it's not competition, so who cares? Do you think he will do the same thing he did in Instagram stream before Rob and actually do more weight?
No,
because he's he's the personality that would do that. Just be like, screw this. I'm gonna put one pound over what Rob is doing.
Here's 200. You've done 218. Here's 219.
Because in his mind, it's no different.
I think that he is more likely to just not do anything. I think he's more likely to completely ignore it.
Oberst and Eddie are like the same person, just born across the ocean from each other. And
honestly, here's the theory that I'm worried about, because I like Oberst a whole bunch. He's one of my favorites. I think if World's Ultimate Strongman contacts him about going head to head with Rob Kearney for this, I think he does it.
Oh,
Regardless.
absolutely.
Probably do it in person. It's not impossible, like especially because things are starting to slowly open back up. Having him and Carney meet at the same spot, especially that like probably by that time there will be tests available and protocols in place. There's no reason they couldn't go back and forth for it. Especially this is slated for what, 2 months from now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a while.
So
I think they could do it and then just have two of the exact same log, just to maintain the.
oh, just to both do it, but they take turns going back and forth remotely. I think they just get him in this. Dude, at the end of July, like if they're not able to do this in the same room together, the world as a whole will have much bigger problems.
Oh yeah, well.
Like if we're talking, if it's still like that, 12 more weeks from now, yeah, I don't know if, yeah. So hopefully they'll be able to do that back and forth, and that's really how I want to see it because I feel like Oberst is just brute strength stronger, but everything Carney does, he seems to have the best technique of anyone on the planet. So this is very much finesse.
Just getting better.
Yeah, and a little bit of strength on Carney with his technique translates to like way more like metric lift at the end. So it's like the bull Oberst brute force, just forcing it, or Rob doing like his technique and like split trick and log however he wants to do it. It'd be very different approaches, and it'd be a very fun thing to watch. I feel like that's the best case scenario.
Plus, Oberst's a natural heel. He would ramp up the heat on that sort of event for weeks.
Him and Edgar are both the same. That's why they were so great when he was just kind of like rivaling with Eddie, and they'd just rip on each other. They would go straight WWE like between rounds, like grab the microphone and be like, Eddie isn't shit. He can't do this. I just got 8 reps. He's not gonna get 6. And then grab someone's beer and chug it and throw it in the crowd like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like
I think he done that at
being.
a Giants Live in the UK. I'm pretty sure he done it in Leeds or something like that, where he grabbed the beer and he's just like, yeah, you can't hang with me, Eddie.
There was like one deadlift he did, and then afterwards he's like, all British people are weak as shit. It's just like, and the whole crowd boos him. He feels way more off of like the booze than the positive energy. Yeah. And then Eddie would come in and be the golden boy hero.
I'd quite like to see who'd win between that sort of trash talk between him and Evan Singleton.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that. Because like I want to see more Evan Singleton. I need to see more of him trash talking people.
Put him, Oberst, and Eddie Hall in the same room together and just record it.
I think Eddie Hall gets offended and leaves.
They'll just walk in wearing Thor masks and a wee picture of a 501 deadlift.
Oh my god!
Eddie Hall's like, no, sorry, not for me.
No. Eddie's immediate response will be pretend he doesn't see it because it doesn't exist. Maybe that's exactly what Eddie would say. Is he'd be like, I don't see anything. There's nothing there. That doesn't exist, so I can't see anything.
Thor Bjornsson with the John Cena lifts. You just can't see it.
But the only thing I hope this doesn't, because Thor was poised to just make an insane run, and I hope he doesn't get too distracted. And I mean, he has enough money, and he's famous enough now that no matter what he does, it doesn't matter. He's going to be rich and successful. So
I also think that he has a decent career ahead of him in acting if he wants it.
And whatever he wants to do, pretty much. So he doesn't necessarily need to keep doing strongman. So I hope that he doesn't lose some of the drive because he honestly doesn't need it. He's set for life. He's accomplished more than most people will ever accomplish.
To pretty much every strongman who's accomplished their goals. They're like, oh.
They go 2 ways. They either immediately peace out, and Eddie set the model for that, and Thor might be following it.
They were doing it way before Eddie.
No one who was as successful at branching out besides Eddie. It's like immediately saying peace out and then monetizing it, getting 2 TV shows. Like
not people. Mariusz Pudzianowski.
He get 2 TV shows within
he got a boxing contract literally as soon as he got out against somebody like really famous, and he got a 7-figure contract out of it.
But Pudzianowski won 5 titles.
Yeah,
So
but even so, like other strongmen, Magnus for Magnuson, once he won his fourth
4
one,
titles.
they
I
actually
think
they stopped letting
One.
him come to World
Eddie's
Strongest
like
Man.
World's Strongest Man, deadlift world record, axle press
Um,
world record, Hollywood.
Bill
TV
Kazmaier.
deal 1, TV deal 2, season 2. That's 4 seasons of television. He won in 2017, and he's like been booked for 2 more
I
seasons.
have not heard anything about
50
season 2 on any
Yeah.
other television.
50-50 partners with Arnold for the Arnold UK as well.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really good.
He said on the maybe that was either on the podcast he just did or one I saw a couple days ago where he said that he had 2 seasons of television lined up. He didn't say necessarily the same shows, but he said one got delayed and one got outright canceled. But the deals were in place and they're ready to go. But due to what's going on, one's been delayed and one they just did indefinitely delayed.
I could not give a shit less about what Eddie does outside of strongman, honestly. Like nothing against Eddie. I just
I'm hoping
strongmen, if they're not really active, I kind of don't care.
Well, I'm hoping one of those is Strongest Man in History season 2. I just hope Brian's not on it because I want to see Brian get his 5th and 6th World's Strongest Man.
Well, yeah, but also hold on, you guys remember? Do you guys watch Strongest Men in History? Like all of it?
Yeah.
The episode, the bonus features, and behind the scenes.
So we were talking the other day about Eddie saying he would be top 10 in strongman. He was not in the top, he was usually the last one in almost every single one of the lists that they did in that entire show.
Not all of them.
Place almost every single time. Not
They've
all
done
of
a couple of weird lifts where they've done the single hand overhead.
But it was only him versus Oberst, and then he beat Oberst. Denny Stones, Nick was last, but Nick is also Nick isn't retired, but he's definitely in the Masters category, so he doesn't really count. What he can do for his age is
really impressive.
Ridiculous.
And Eddie still beat Nick a lot of times, or Nick beat Eddie a lot of times.
Nick did insane stuff where he would push Brian, which surprised me because Brian
Nick crazy leg strength. Like Nick has a lot of back and leg strength.
Oh yeah,
he's another one that's got a background in powerlifting though.
Yep.
Yeah, he's also an old school power lifter too. Move it as long as it moves. If I break, it's okay though. In the show, you've seen that that
piano
mass they had to do.
The piano lift.
The piano lift.
So the interesting thing about the keg, it was either Oberst or Eddie that was saying the story that basically they broke whatever the current record was and they were done, and so was the other one. And then Nick was also just going to be done, but he decided to keep going for it. And so Brian had no intentions of lifting anywhere near what he was lifting, but Nick just wouldn't stop. And Brian's too competitive. So Brian didn't want to lift anywhere near what he had to lift, but they all did their first one. They all broke their record, and then Oberst and Eddie are back getting snacks, and then boom, 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 boom. They just kept going because Nick will die before he almost fundamentally needs to break.
Before he fails a lift he thinks he can do.
Mm-hmm. He's having a near heart attack, and he's like, "No, I just needed the piano unstrapped for a second. I got this." You don't understand. You had a near heart attack. We got to take the giant piano off your back, sir.
That's the heart of strongman. That's what I think is what makes a good strongman. And the thing is, Nick Best is qualified. I realized after a long time of watching a lot of the World's Strongest Man and watching a lot of the heats, qualifying for the finals of World's Strongest Man is a fucking amazing feat. Like a world-class strength feat. Placing 10th in the finals at World's Strongest Man is a feat of crazy, accomplishment. Just getting there is a crazy accomplishment.
Yeah.
I think with people who win so much, like Zaviskis and Brian and Marius, they think that that's normal. It's not. That's not normal.
What's going on with so did strongman just explode 10 years ago in England? Because you had one guy from the 80s in Britain who won. Nobody really mattered. And then Eddie Hall, then the Stoltman brothers, and you have other people coming up, and then suddenly it's just
Terry Hollands before Eddie Hall. Terry Hollands was the British.
Well, Terry Hollands didn't win one.
No, but
what was the other? There was Capes, and then someone else won it after Capes. Who?
Gary Taylor.
It seems like
Yeah,
Great Britain's drastically upped their game in the last hopefully they're
will
putting out in
say-
the last 10 years.
Before Thor won in 2018, he had placed on the podium more than anybody else in the entire history without winning.
How much
Oh.
that is compared to Mateus now, because Mateus's podium finished like the last 3 or 4?
Two.
Two.
Last
and
two,
Thor
yeah.
got 3 placements
Yeah,
before
No,
win.
Thor was on the podium like 4 times before he won.
So it was a stupid high number because
It was
he
4 or
was
5 times.
he was always top 3, just never could clinch that number 1 spot. Because I mean, you had Brian who was dominating, Big
Brian
Z.
Strongest ever. Big Z had his strongest ever. And Big Z had his most experience, which was also scary. Like
Yeah.
38-year-old Big
So
Z
how does
was.
this affect Worlds now with Thor being gone?
I think it gives Brian the best chance.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about that earlier before I could jump on, and as soon as I heard that, because I didn't read that yet, I was
Mhm.
like, Joel's getting his 5th title. Is
Well,
exactly where my mind went.
The other
Because-
thing is that during when Pudzianowski got his 5 titles, we haven't talked about this enough. Was at a time where World's Strongest Man had the least amount of competitors, like actual good
I don't
competitors.
think you can compare era to era because I feel like
Everything
if he was
except
today,
Pudzianowski's era. If you just watch, I literally just watch every single World's Strongest Man. Up until Pudzianowski's run, like 8 or 10 years, it was contentious. Every single event, every single World's Strongest Man was won by less than 3 points. There
Yeah,
were
they
a
were
few
close.
that were a little blown out of the water because of people like John Paul or people like Magnus for Magnuson, but Magnus for Magnuson wasn't placing first every event. Neither was John Paul. Marius was. He won 1 or 2 of his titles by 10 points. He didn't even like a crazy lead.
didn't Kaz have a couple blowout years like that as well?
No,
yeah,
no.
back in the
His first 2 years, yes. Kaz's
Yeah.
first 3 wins, he blew everybody out of the water, and they banned him from competing.
they did. And then he came
Until
back and he took.
won twice, and then John Paul won twice, and he came back, and he was actually competing with John Paul and pushing John Paul really hard, actually. And the funniest thing I've ever heard, Bill Kazmaier, the first year he came back, he goes, I won 3 championships. 2 of them were against Jeff Capes. John Paul has won 2 championships, and one of them wasn't against Jeff Capes. He's a paper champion. Bill Kazmaier literally called John Paul Sigmarsson a paper champion of World's Strongest Man.
Oh, that seems exactly what Kazmaier would say in every situation. I still find it hilarious where every interview with Kaz is he'll walk up to like Brian or Thor like almost immediately after winning something and immediately open up with my 4 wins about me and then talk about himself for like 45 seconds and then be like, oh yeah, you're here too. Didn't you just win or something? Like every interview starts with Kaz about Kaz and then like here's why I'm the coolest. Now, I guess you did win the Arnold and all, so just talk about that for a second.
I think there was something when you're talking about comparing the eras. I think there was something that with Pudzianowski stuff. Was there not a point where Big Z was competing for another federation as well?
Yeah, there was another strongman federation.
IPSA.
Yeah, if you look at Big Z, his
the other thing,
it's ridiculous.
Europe's Strongest Man, the years that Pudzianowski won Europe's Strongest Man and World's Strongest Man, there was 4 years. It was in Poland. All 4 years, the exact same place, and all the top people on the podium were Polish for like 4 years in a row.
Let me show you the Strongman Champion League that he competed in as well. I'm gonna drop this into Discord.
Like half of the names.
Well,
I almost all the names.
I just want to see your guys' take live. So going to go into the general channel, and I'm just gonna drop that. Now, that is.
Oh, that is yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That is Jordan Savickas' Strongman Champions League record.
I had the job pretty far away, so I was thinking about this whole thing Monday about apples to apple, like orange kind of thing, and how this is a different lift and how times are different. So
Yeah.
like, I felt like Thor would need 5 pounds to prove that he was better all-time deadlift than Eddie. But comparing any decade and any accomplishment, Big Z just
Big
has
Z
such
is
a
the
large
most
fuck-off
decorated
amount of
strongman.
wins. You
Big Z is
can't.
the most decorated strongman there has ever been
Not
because he
even-
competed in more events than there have ever been.
And Arnold's like he's won half the Arnolds. Just
Yeah.
half.
He's won his half of what have all the Arnolds that have existed.
Yes. And then he has
Before
it's
this
just
year, I think he had won more Arnolds than actually they had been running.
so
Like,
if we're
he had
arguing
more than-
strongest man in history, you have to go with Big Z. I'll make an argument for Brian if he gets 6 worlds, but
Well, not just that. If you look at Big Z's wins, the 4 years that he won were extremely contentious with crazy strong people.
and then his
Z's
tail
first
end
win
of the
was
career
Brian
was
Shaw's
Brian
second
Shaw.
year. Yeah, Z's first win was Brian Shaw's second year at World's Strongest Man.
And Big Z's last 3 years was when Thor was starting to come into stride. So then he had Thor and Brian simultaneously and got an Arnold during that period.
Brian's first 3 wins were against Thor. Only Brian's first win wasn't against Thor. Like, Thor has been competing with Brian for almost as long as Brian's been doing strong.
Yeah. So just like the
Thor
fact
started,
that
like,
Big
technically
Z
2
got
years.
1 or 2 Arnolds against Brian and Thor.
And Pujanowski, and Derek Poundstone, and so many other strong fucking people.
Yeah, so like you can argue any decade, like he's gone against some of the best from multiple eras. Big Z all-time great by such a long milestone.
A lot of like flash in the pan strongmen. There's so many. They're really strong guys, but every year you have a few people who are like, holy crap, those guys are strong this year for some reason. It's usually just because they're not injured.
And then they get into the cycle of perpetually being injured, and then they just snowball into this 8th, 9th, and 10th slots for a while.
Yep. Well, then you have people like JF Carone, who's a perennial like 6th place finisher at strongman competitions. Like that doesn't seem good, but
it's top 6 in the world for 5
finishing
years.
6th place consistently, like, because he's always like, he's not going to be last, but he's not going to be first, but he's going to be pushing you. He's going to be pushing, and I think that's what strongman is about. The people who can hang on for the longer amount of time. People like Big Z, people like Brian, who did it for so long.
Yeah.
After people told them they should quit, they kept doing it.
So on the subject of quitting, I think we've been on for about an hour and 45.
Yeah, we're approaching 2 hours now.
Do we call that a day? We'll talk. We'll say
so.
Thor's the new king of the deadlift, unofficially. Big Z's the daddy. And Big Z's the daddy.
Big Z is father strong man.
And
grandfather strong man.
Yep.
And
we'll
Brian
see you
Shaw
all next week to discuss Luke's potential log lift.
Luke's guaranteed win.
Yeah.
Alright. It was fun.
That sounds good, gents.
As always, congratulations, Thor. That was fucking amazing to watch. Thank you for giving us content, something to look forward to.
Something to talk about.
And let's definitely end on that. Thor did an insane feat of strength, and no one can ever take that away from him.
That got me motivated. Like, I started cleaning my house yesterday after I watched Thor do that because I got pumped. Like, I know a lot of people who got pumped about that.
Luke got pumped and almost broke his contract. Like, I feel like he's like, I should do it now, but there's probably like a contract thing that says he can't. So he just like, I'll just do a 1.5 kilos less.
I'll have to look at that then.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so I guess we'll wrap up here. We'll catch everyone next time.
Next week.
All right.
Later, guys. Oof, that was long.